Insurance is not knowing if you have coverage when your car bumps a hot dog cart that hits a fire hydrant that floods your car. TD Insurance is confidence your coverage fits your needs. Graduates and professionals could save $680 by bundling home and car insurance. Avoid insurance and get a quote at tdinsurance.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith, and it's Monday morning. Glad to be here, 7 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, April the 24th, 2017. This is a 30-minute show. We're just looking at, it's really my healing journey, and so I hope that you get something out of this as well. And we're looking at a bunch of information from Havoca, havoca.org. I did pop the link into the chat room if anybody's interested in checking that out, and you can go in and you have to log in. If you're listening from a player somewhere, you have to log into the Blog Talk Radio site. And if you don't have like a username, you have to set that up, but it just takes like a couple minutes. But you can always just listen if you want to. But most of the time I do have the chat room open. Sometimes I forget, but most of the time it's there. So morning reflection, we're just looking at morning reflection, how we're doing on our healing journey. This is something I can ask myself every morning. I'm just doing these shows Monday and Friday for now, but every day, I could look at this. I can look at a morning reflection. I can say, how am I really doing today on my healing journey? How am I feeling? Get in touch with myself and what I'm feeling and what my needs are, so they can work on things through the week, to try to get help or try to get information for what I'm dealing with, right? And so I can say, how am I feeling today? How am I doing on my healing journey? Any particular thing I need to work on. For this morning, I woke up with a headache this morning. I didn't sleep well last night. And this is a triggering week for me. I have a lot of trigger dates throughout the calendar year, but April 25th is a huge one for me. And it would take our whole half an hour show just to go through and explain why, so I'm not going to bother. But huge calendar date for me, triggers all over the place. I'm just triggered. I'm triggered emotionally. I'm just triggered, in every way. And so I already know this coming up on this calendar date, and so I'm bolstered, to deal with it much, much better than I used to before I started my healing journey, which is great because I don't want to end up going backward in my healing journey. Neither do you. So you want to make sure you do a safety checklist. If you're not sure, where to find that information to make sure that you are safe enough to listen to this, if you're a survivor of abuse and you're just starting your healing journey, you can get it several different places. Havoca.org has it on their website, a safety section, as well as like ASCA. That's a huge one. Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. It's a More Center program. They have a Survivor to Thriver manual. You can go there and check that out. And the first section of it is called Safety First, and it's like 60-something pages long. It's a huge safety manual, and it's really worth checking out. So you can read it online, or you can download it, whatever you want to do. I downloaded it and I read it years ago, and it was really helpful information. Definitely. So you want to make sure you're safe enough so that you don't go backward in your healing journey and end up being triggered by something that anybody's talking about, my show or anybody else's, that could trigger you and cause you to be uncomfortable, cause you to have problems in dealing with things, and then go backward in your healing journey. Nobody wants that. So make sure you're safe enough before you listen to this show. If you're not, just turn it off. You wouldn't be hurting my feelings. Just go listen to something else. And if you're safe enough, then that's fine. But if you're not sure, turn the show off now, because you would really be doing the right thing. You have to make the right decisions for yourself, right? So we'll move on. I'm, quite a ways through my healing journey, and, I know that I'm fine to listen to certain things about other people's, about abuse or about anybody's other stories of abuse, and so it doesn't trigger me to the point where I'm going to go backward in my healing journey. So you have to be sure of that, right? That's why I say this on every show. So we're looking at an acronym. This is from Havoca.org, and I did pop the link into the chat room there, HAVOCA, Havoca.org. And this lady Cheryl on the website put together this acronym with the little blurbs for the letters that spell out the words adult survivors of sexual abuse. But she did say that really this information is good for anybody who's been abused. It doesn't have to be sexual abuse. It's just that the letters, that's what she's spelling out here. So the blurbs are actually using these letters. And so I just thought it was interesting. And I like for the most part what she has to say here. Um, we're on the letter A in the word sexual. The letter A, she says, accept, love, and forgive the child within. In accepting and forgiving, you will learn to love and respect who you are now. So in doing this, you become whole and can then nurture yourself to become a healthy adult. And only then can you begin your journey to happiness. So that's the letter A in sexual. Accept, love, and forgive the child within. Because in doing this, you can become whole, and we need to learn to love and respect who we are now, right? And we can nurture ourselves to become a healthy adult. Well, that's interesting. I don't know. Accept, love, and forgive the child within. Yeah, that's very important. To accept the person that I am, to accept all the parts of me, including the wounded parts. The woundedness of my very being, right? My very core being, of being abused in every way as a child. And then the decisions that I made, really, that were not wise or, good decisions for myself as a young adult or a young teen even, and then into my young adult life, and then also into my mid-adult life, and then now I'm in my latter section at 51 years old. I have to learn to accept myself and accept the person that I am, And because I wasn't accepted as a child, I was rejected as a child by both of my parents, and really my siblings were so messed up because of the abuse. Nobody was really trying to help anybody out. There was one of my brothers that was actually really decent. He got murdered when he was 19. Somebody killed him, and he was really the only one in the family that was actually ever trying to bolster anybody up. The rest of them were all just living for themselves, and that's because they grew up in this horrific situation, the same situation I grew up in. I'm the last of 7 children, 7 siblings before me. 3 didn't make it because they were born stillborn. There would have been 10 of us. And my parents did a great job to destroy their family and destroy their children. And, none of us banded together to try to help each other out, including my sister, who was next to me, who was 5 years older than me. And, we should have been closer, but, she was just dealing with the abuse in her own way. So we weren't close either. So there was no closeness, there was no love, there was no acceptance. It was all abuse and rejection and garbage. So even today as adults, we can't get along for more than 15 minutes. We can do the politeness, the polite trying to do the brotherly sisterly thing. There's only a couple of my siblings alive. And I actually don't talk to them anymore because I cut them all off. I cut my whole family off. But we used to try to be able to do this kind of family thing, but it was never doable because we had so much problems with rage and anger towards each other, towards our past, I guess. Nobody wanted to admit it because everybody was in denial. I'm the only one that wasn't in denial. Everybody else just sits there with their, hiding and hiding their shame, because they don't want anybody to know what happened. That's why nobody's coming out to tell me not to write my story, not to write my books, what I did back in 2009. But, the siblings that are left, which is only a couple, they don't say anything because they know it's true. It's just that they don't want to come out and that's fine. No, people don't have to go public with their story. But even on a one-on-one level with me, they won't be real. So they can't be in my life. So there's nobody that can do this for me but me. I like what she said here, accept, love, and forgive the child within. There's nobody that can do that for me but me. Nobody else is going to understand where I've been. Nobody else is truly going to understand where we've been, right? What we've been through. And these wounded parts of ourselves, these wounded inner children or inner child that we have or whatever, this inner part of ourselves, basically that's what it is, from so long ago. I need to learn to accept that part of myself, to love that part of myself. And then they said here to forgive the child within, which I don't agree with that part because I don't have anything to be asking for forgiveness for. I was just a little child being abused, right? And so I'm not going to forgive. I'm not going to put myself in the place of that I was guilty of something that I need to forgive myself for. Everything that I did was based on the abuse, because of the abuse that I suffered at the hands of my parents as well as my brother, my 21-year-old brother who raped me from 8 to 9 years old. So everything I did was a protective measure, basically to survive and to cope because I was being physically abused by my parents And both my mother and my dad. My mom was my main abuser, but my dad was also very abusive. You can check my stuff out if you're interested. Borden Hill website. I just detail it all there. But you have to make sure you're safe enough to look at that. That website is explicit and graphic, and I do put a warning on anything there that really you need to be very, very careful what you're looking at there, because I just detail it all. It's very graphic. And if you're not sure you're safe enough, don't check it out. It wouldn't be worth it. If you don't want to go backwards in your healing journey, that's what I'm saying. But forgiving the child within. I'm sorry, but I don't deserve to be in a place of unforgiveness towards myself. So I don't think I need to forgive the child within. So I think she's wrong there. I don't think little children do anything wrong to deserve abuse. See, it's not a discipline issue. If it was a discipline issue, then I could say, yeah, I was bad and I deserve to be treated in a disciplinary fashion because I needed to be brought back in line so that my behaviors would be, proper, and so I could forgive myself because I was just a little kid. But actually, abuse is not discipline. So this is where people make that. I think they kind of cross the line with that stuff. So she says, accept, love, and forgive the child within. Well, I don't have anything to be forgiven for because I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything to deserve to be beaten and raped and tortured as a child. That was just bad decisions, made by my caregivers, which was my mother, my birth mother, and my birth father, who abused all their children horrifically. I was just the last one. I wasn't the first one. They had lots of practice. I was the seventh last child born. They had lots of practice to hate and abuse their children and abuse each other. So they had lots and lots of practice by the time I was born, and they knew exactly how to do it. And I was just this little child growing up in this abusive home, so I don't need to forgive myself. And I don't agree with what she said here at all. But I do about the part of accepting and loving myself, because we all just need to accept and learn to love ourselves. And so she says we need to learn, you will learn to love and respect who you are now in accepting and forgiving. Well, I'm not forgiving myself of anything as a child because my inner children did nothing to deserve to have their head bashed in, laying in a pool of blood. And I won't get too graphic here, but, I did not deserve to have my nose busted by my mom and burned in the oven and raped by my brother. No, I didn't deserve that at all. So I don't have to I don't have to forgive myself for anything. And I was just then had to learn how to survive in that home and how to stay alive in order so I wouldn't kill myself, was doing things to actually be able to make it through, which then I turned to drug use at the age of 12 years old. But I don't have to forgive myself for that because that was a coping mechanism brought on because of the abuse. So no, but I do. So I don't agree with what she says there at all. But I do accept. I have accepted myself and all the wounded parts of myself, and I've learned to love myself, which is a big, big deal. Because I used to hate myself. I hated my body. I hated my life. I hated what my parents did to me. I hated what my brother did to me. I'm barren, barren because of the sexual abuse and the scars. And I can't have children. And I hated my body. And I had a real problem with God. So, this is a real, this is real. This is not, forgive the child within. That's to me, that's garbage. So see, I don't agree with everything everybody says, and I'm very, very vocal about it. I'll tell people if I don't agree with something I'm looking at. But for the most part, the stuff on this website is very good, so I'm not going to not look at this website just because she's written that. Lots of people write stuff like that. You need to forgive yourself, this little child that you were. It's like, no, I don't need to forgive anything if I don't so choose to. As far as my abusers go, that's my own choice to forgive my abusers if I choose to do so or not. That's all of our own choice. The issue is I don't have to forgive myself for being abused. Come on now. That was not my fault, so that was not your fault. So I don't agree with that at all. No. But oh well, that's okay. But then, we have to learn how to respect ourselves, and this is a big issue, learning to love and respect ourselves anyway, because of the abuse. It's easy for me as an adult survivor of child abuse to be really, really down on myself, hard on myself, because of the inner voices, this negative stuff. And we're going to look at that today, a little bit of it. So we'll move on from there. But that's the A in the word sexual. The next letter up is L, so we'll look at that on Friday. So the next section here, this is a different section on HAVOCA. This is information for survivors. If you go to that website, HAVOCA, HAVOCA.org, look for under the information for survivors. There's tabs on the left-hand side of the page. And the section we want to look at now is called attitudes. This is kind of interesting because it's talking. You'll see when we start looking at this. I actually just read a little bit of this article and I thought this could be really kind of, interesting. Some of it may be useful to us. Some of it may not be. Like I said, not everybody's going to, everybody has different needs, we've all been through different things, even though we share the commonality of being abused in some way as a child. We're going to all have been through different things and develop differently. So not everything's going to be helpful to me that it might be helpful to somebody else, and some things might be helpful to somebody else that's not helpful to me. See, so we all need different things. So I'm just reading through just to see what there is there. So they said here another important part of the healing process involves coming to terms with how the abuse has affected your attitudes towards yourself and others. So they wrote here, whoever wrote this, during your abuse, you would have received messages about your lack of worth or value. And these messages could be subtle or direct, but all will serve to reinstate your low self-esteem. And she goes, whoever wrote this said, a friend of mine was jokingly told he would end up walking down the high street in high heels and a handbag, while his sister was told she would end up playing football for a profession. This combined with his abuse left him confused about his sexuality and lowered his self-esteem. And so they write here, although quite a strong character, he often quietly questioned his sexuality and always tried to prove his worth. He became a bully at school and eventually ended up in prison for actual bodily harm. He has now learned to deal with his feelings and can see how his attitude of himself affected his outlook on life. So they said here, if you experience these negative messages, they will still be running your life now. Subconsciously, you will be aware of an inner voice. And we all talk to ourselves. It helps us make decisions and think things through. Sometimes, however, the inner voice will put you down and say things like they have here, quote unquote, you're too fat, you're ugly, you don't act like a man, etc. You must learn to reply to this inner self and tell it your worth. Don't worry if it sounds crazy, but it works on the same principle as the mirror theory. So if you stand in front of a mirror and repeat several times out loud that you are a confident person, after a time your brain will accept this definition. If you don't believe me, try it. I don't recommend you doing it in the office toilets, though. So I guess you got to do this at home sort of thing, or somewhere where you sort of, have some privacy. During the healing process, you always need to remain positive about your abuse. That may sound like a contradiction in terms. However, take a look at the rest of this section and see for yourself. So we'll look at that on Monday. But I just want to look at this. I like what they have to say here. During your abuse, you would have received messages about your lack of worth or value, they said. And that the abuse would have affected our attitudes toward ourselves and others. Absolutely, that's true. And, not for maybe some degrees more than others for people, right? I mean, I was abused from birth. So I grew up in this dysfunctional home full of abuse. My parents were brought up on abuse charges when I was little. Social workers were involved. We weren't removed from the home. And then after the social workers signed off the case, the abuse just started right back up again. So my parents had free range to just go ahead and continue on what they were doing to all my siblings before I was born, after I was born, which was then to abuse me as well. And so I got all kinds of messages from them and my siblings that really affected my sense of worth and value. But mainly, the real damaging stuff that really bothers me is the stuff that my mother did to me. And that's because I loved my mother very much. My mother was my main abuser, but I loved her so much. And I mean, I was willing to kind of overlook what she did to try to gain her love, So that was that little child inside of me just going, Mommy, don't hurt me, I love you, Like, why would she do this to me, This was when I was really young, right? I couldn't figure out why she would hurt me, why she would push me away, why she would reject me, why she would beat on me. Why would she do these horrible things to me? She burned me with cigarettes, things like this. She was just she was a very psychologically ill woman. Both my parents, when they were brought up on abuse charges, were diagnosed with mental illness. My dad with psychological illness as well. But my dad was diagnosed with he was diagnosed borderline schizophrenic with BPD, borderline personality disorder. And my mom was diagnosed with manic depressive, which now is bipolar. Right? And my brother that sexually abused me was also diagnosed bipolar. So they were all had mental issues. They never got any help for them. And they just put their stuff on all of us. They put their garbage of their verbal insults, So like she said here, or whoever wrote this article said, that people can say these horrible things to us as children, when we're little and we're very vulnerable to trying to figure out who we are and, who we are inside the family as well as who we are as a person on the earth, on this planet. We're trying to get a hold of the reality, right? It's like, who am I in this home? Who am I in this family? Who am I, in this life? What am I doing here, right? Who am I? Well, these messages, they can really mess a person up when they come, especially with physical abuse involved or sexual abuse involved, CSA, child sexual abuse. Then you really start to have some real problems, you know what I mean? So they said here, if you experience these negative messages, whatever they may have been, they will still be running your life now. And that's absolutely true, because this is what I'm dealing with this week, because I'm so triggered from this date that's coming up tomorrow that, all weekend I had memories of these things that my mother would tell me as a child, these horrible, horrible names that she would call me, which I detailed on all my videos that I did. I did 27 hours worth of videos. Actually, it's about 24 hours or something. 24 hours worth of video material looking at what the reality of my childhood was. I couldn't go into every single detail. It just would be like 500 years long. But the issue is it would be as old as long. It'd be many, many more hours than the years that I am alive. I just, I just gave people an idea of what it was for me to grow up in that home. And, horrific. Absolutely. So, yeah, did I believe the stuff that they told me? Part of me did, because it was beat into me. This wasn't like my mother just called me a bad name one time and then apologized for it and never called me anything else again. My mother called everybody names. She loved to call people. She loved to verbally abuse people. And she loved to verbally insult people. And so that's what she did. It just came along with physical abuse as well, physical violence as well. That's what both my parents were doing to each other, and they did that to all their children. So they left us really screwed up. 2 of my brothers are dead. They committed suicide. My sister, my oldest sister, was suicidal as well. Nobody really talked about it, but she was. My other sister's in denial. She's like dissociative. She can't deal with anything, so she just says, "Oh, I wasn't there," or "Oh, I wasn't there." She was never there. That way, she was the one hiding in the corner. Right? And she won't get help for her own issues, so, she's not on a healing journey. I hope by now she is. We haven't talked for quite a while, but I doubt it, because she'll never admit that what we went through was horrific, because she doesn't want to look at the problem. She doesn't want to look at the pain, right? Well, I was willing to do that on a regular basis, but it also then, because I wasn't in denial, caused me a lot of problems, because I was a drug user, just like my brothers, trying to numb the pain, trying to mask it. Right? And so, people cope different ways, right? But even if physical abuse is not involved, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, is enough to kill a person. That's actually hurts. It hurts so incredibly bad. These roles that people make you play as a child, right? And then expect that you're going to play them as an adult too. So I did a lot of looking at especially John Bradshaw, his books, Healing the Shame That Binds You. That's a really, really good book, as well as Learning to Love the Wounded Inner Child, or whatever. That next book the other book that he did, the second book. Those are really worth looking at. I need to get them back out and reread them, because what he has to say there is very, very important. He goes and looks at all the role-playing stuff, which is really important for survivors of abuse who grow up in a dysfunctional home, because I don't have to be those things that they made me be as a child. I don't have to be the one, the stuff those names that they called me. That's not me. I had to look at who I really was, apart from the abuse and apart from all the stuff that they actually created in me, which was a lot of hatred and a lot of baggage, a lot of problems, a lot of self-hatred, hatred for life, hatred for God, hatred for authority figures. I don't trust anybody. I don't even trust myself, but I just have to wing it. I have to go through life kind of winging it because that's the only way I can get through. Otherwise, I could just give up and kill myself. See, this is the issue, right? That's why 2 of my brothers are dead. And it's a serious, serious issue what people do to children. We never deserve that. I never deserved that. So why would I want to have to forgive myself like that other that's why I was talking earlier. I don't need to forgive myself, right? It wasn't me doing this to myself, right? Absolutely horrific. These things, they can really haunt a person. So we're going to look at the rest of this article. You can go there yourself. Just go to havoca.org, havoca.org, and you can check this out. It's under the survivor tabs, information for survivors. The tab's on the left-hand side of the page there. At the top, you'll see attitudes. Check it out because this is going to be good. This is a really good article that they've written here. This is just the first part, and we're going to pick up some more of it on Friday. But yeah, these things, this is absolutely horrific what this stuff does to people. Whatever these little inner voices are, which subconsciously we may be sort of slightly aware that they're there. Oh, I'm no good. This is what I was thinking yesterday because that was beaten into me. I'm worthless. I'm useless. I'm just a piece of, shit, whatever. I never deserved to even live, right? I should have died with the other stillborn babies. That's what my mother used to say to me, especially when she was beating on me. And she'd be pounding on me and just beating the crap out of me. And this is what she would tell me. I never deserved to live anyway. She'd be kicking me and punching me, beating me with a belt, whatever she was beating me with, sticks, whatever, big old table legs, whatever she had in her hand. And, horrific. And telling me that I never deserved to live and I was just a worthless piece of, I won't even say the words here on the air here this morning. But this is, I have vivid memories of laying on the floor, hearing this stuff, and being beaten and battered, And then I have to try to gather myself together and say, I am worth it. I am worth it. I do deserve to be here. I did not deserve to be treated that way. I don't deserve to be abused. I never did deserve to be abused. Who am I? Am I a good person? I mean, I try to have a love in my heart. They couldn't kill me. They couldn't actually destroy that, which I thought that they did. But see, this is such a huge issue, for people, for survivors of abuse. So we only have a couple minutes left, but if you're struggling and you're having a hard time, things are just not going well for you, you do the right thing and you get some help. Because like like they're saying, we did not deserve this. We need to learn how to love ourselves, how to take care of ourselves, and not finish the job of the abusers, which is to destroy ourselves. This is what made sense to me after I became an older adult at the age of 42, sitting on the couch wanting to, end it all and get out of my pain. At the age of 42, realizing that this abuse was not my fault, and that if I went ahead and destroyed my life, then my abusers would have won, right? Then they would have finished the job of destroying this little child that I was, and finally destroying me at the age of 42. I would have done it myself, but it would have been through osmosis. What they did to me as a child would have destroyed me if I would have allowed it. So I reached out and got some help, and I'm really, really thankful that I did. And that's what I'm asking everybody else to do. You know what I mean? It's like, do not suffer on your own. I don't trust counselors and therapists, so I went anonymous help, and I also had some help from some friends who turns out to be our psychotherapists in Australia. But the thing is make sure you get some help, and also crisis line stuff. Very, very important. Make sure that if you're struggling and you have nobody to talk to. So many times, survivors of abuse, we don't have people to talk to. For whatever reason, we don't have anybody trustworthy in our lives. We don't have anybody who cares in our lives, or even would want to care. It's hard, to hear these things from survivors. I think so many times people just, not that they don't care, but they can't deal with our pain. They can't deal with where we've been. But there's people that are trained to be able to do this, and they understand where we've been because there's a lot of times they're survivors themselves, right? And on these crisis lines. So make sure that you reach out and get some help. Do not struggle and suffer on your own. Reach out to somebody around you. If you don't have anybody to reach out to, call a crisis line. That's the right thing to do. And, get some help. Be good to yourself. I need to do this every day when I wake up. I need to be good to myself, right? I need to do these things that are going to help me to have a good life, right? And it's really my responsibility as an adult, right? And so, if you're struggling, like I said, make sure you get some help. So we've got about, 30 minutes, 30 seconds left here. So we'll pick this back up here Friday morning. And I just wish you a good day, taking care of yourself. Be good to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Tomorrow is a heavy-duty calendar date for me, and I'm going to be reading some material and doing some meditation and really looking in and being really good to myself, really kind to myself for the rest of the week. And so I would wish this for you too. I wish you a really good day. Until next time, I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.
A few things to know before you fly WestJet to Nashville. You don't need cowboy boots to have a great time in Nashville. You don't need a cowboy hat either. You don't even need to be a country music fan. To have a great time in Nashville, you just need to go to Nashville. WestJet can certainly help with that, with great low WestJet fares nonstop from Calgary to Nashville. Visit WestJet.com or call your travel agent.